Welcome back to Creatures, Cowards, and Crafting. In front of me I have a piece of 1-inch thick foam board, and we're going to use this to make some concrete pillars for our Mutant Crawl Classic game. This build is going to be very easy. If you watch Black Magic Craft, he suggests out of the 5 beginning terrain pieces that you make, pillars are one of them. And I'm going to do that today, but I'm going to put my own spin on it. We're first going to start with a regular kitchen knife, and whenever I cut this, I'm going to cut down like so. We're going to be careful when doing this because the blade can bend a little bit, but I'm not too concerned about solid straight cuts. If you get a little off or if it's rough, we're going to fix that. So for those that might be interested, I went about 1.5 inches wide on this, and I went about, about 3.5 inches in height. Now you can make these smaller, you can make them bigger. Just do whatever you want, customize it for your own game. Add a little character to these pillars. I'm going to simply start plucking away at the foam core like so. Keep in mind these pillars may have seen wars, they may have seen natural disasters, so the more rough that you can make this look, probably the better. As you can see here, there's a nice natural look to this now. I'm going to take a straightened out paper clip, and this is going to act as our rebar. What I'm going to do is just sink this down from the top like so, and I'm aiming for that exposed part down below so you can see the rebar coming through. And I'm going to add about 3 more of these. When I'm done, it should look something like this. Now for those engineers out there, please, this is probably not the video for you. This is not going to hold up my house. Yes, there would probably be maybe 12 or more rebars, but we're just going for a look for this project. So let's move on. We're going to add a little bit more rebar, a little bit more character to this. I'm taking another piece of paper clip and I'm going to cut this down using some wire cutters. What we're going to do is just push this in the side like so. If you've ever seen rebar, they normally tie these together. They'll actually almost create an entire wall just using rebar, and then they'll create some forms and pour in the concrete to dry around it. We're also going to add another piece up top like so. If it gets a little long, you can always trim it down, so keep that in mind. Now I'm taking a piece of aluminum foil like so. I'm going to press this onto the pillars. This is going to give it a nice texture when we go to paint it. We want to get rid of all those smooth surfaces. Should look something kind of like this when we get done, and we're just going to move this and get the back as well. Here's 4 that I completed. These took me about 30 minutes to do. Now we're going to move on and add a base for these. I'm going to use some washers like I've used in some of my previous projects. We're going to use a hot glue gun for this, so be kind of careful, you don't want to burn yourself. Just going to put a nice bead of hot glue on the bottom like so. Now these washers do have a opening at the bottom, so I would highly advise when you go to clamp these down, don't put it on a surface that you don't want these glued down on, because as you will see here in a moment, some of this will bleed through the bottom. You don't want to get that on you. You don't want to get that on anything that might be expensive or valuable. So if you don't have a washer, you can also use a regular stand like so, and in fact I'll do one of the pillars with this. While I was hot gluing, I went ahead and put a little bit around the washers themselves. This will just help me whenever I go back to add some flocking. Now I'm going to take a little bit of Mod Podge, and as you can see I've added a little black paint into it. Also poured out a little bit of tile grout. I have a small bag of this, and what we're going to do is just take the brush, a little bit of Mod Podge on it. I want to get a whole bunch. We're just going to dab in some grout, start applying it to the pillar like so. This is just going to add a nice textured look to it. Now when we're applying this, we want to make sure that we don't go too heavy with it. Remember, we can always allow this to dry and add another coat if we think it needs it. We want to watch for the Mod Podge getting into the crevices and congealing in there, so nice and light. Next we're going to move to putting a little earth texture on the bases. Then we're going to give everything a nice primer. Did this with uniform gray, and then I went over and kind of went lightly with some white and then back with the gray just to get some highlights. Next we're going to go and start picking out the base with the bark brown. We're also going to go ahead and prime the rebar using the burnt umber. I'm going to do a gentle dry brush starting with some dark gray, going to a light gray, and then finally with a suede. Once that's done, I'm going to mix up some pigments. Here I'm using a natural umber and a natural sienna. I'm going to mix it with an ultra varnish matte, and then I'm going to apply that to the rebar. We're going to allow that to dry. It's going to give a nice rust effect, and then we're going to go and weather it with some Cerisepia. I'm going to apply about 1 to 2 coats of this Minwax polyurethane to the project. This really provides a nice protective coat and also hardens the foam. Just to finish off the project, I added some tufts, some graffiti, and a poster to the project. I also put some rocks on top of the pillars just to give them a little extra flair. Ooh. Guys, that wraps everything up for this week. I greatly appreciate your viewership as always. If you have friends that might like these type of crafts, please feel free to share. If you like the video, give me a big thumbs up. As always, be safe. Look forward to your comments. We'll catch you on the flip side.